Hey, what is up guys? Welcome to another video. In this video I'm going back to finish off the May 25th paper from 2017. This was paper 1 from the GCSEs last year, and I've already done a video on this, but I didn't do all of the questions. So in this video I'm finally going back to finish off the questions that I didn't do. Specifically in this video I'll be going through the first 7 questions of this paper, also question 9, 11, 12, 13, 15 and 20. If you want answers to the other questions, see my first video that I did on this. And just before I start, I just want to mention the positivity and how good it is to be making videos on YouTube. There's just, I don't know, in the media and in general, there's just been so much negativity around YouTube, but that's not my experience so far, so I'm really enjoying it. And thanks to everyone watching and leaving comments and letting me know that you like these videos. But that's all I have to say about that, so let's get straight into the questions. Okay, so question 1 says, the scatter graph shows the maximum temperature and the number of hours of sunshine in 14 British towns on one day. And here we have a graph with the temperature on the y-axis and the number of hours of sunshine on the x-axis. One of the points is an outlier. Write down the coordinates of this point. So an outlier is a point that typically doesn't follow the trend of the rest of the data. So here on the graph we can clearly see that the outlier is up here, as all of the rest of the points are on this general trend over here. And the point of that point, the coordinates of that point are 10, 19. Part B says, for all of the other points, write down the type of correlation. So there are 3 types of correlation. You can have positive correlation, negative correlation, or no correlation. And because all of the points generally lie along a line, and that slope of that line is positive, or the gradient of that line is positive, we say that's a positive relationship, positive correlation, sorry. Part C says, on the same day in another British town, the maximum temperature was 16.4 degrees. Estimate the number of hours of sunshine in this town on this day. So we can go back to the graph and we can find 16.4 on the y-axis. So if each of these squares is worth 0.2, 16.4 would be here. And we can go across to our line of best fit and then down to the number of hours of sunshine. And we can estimate that to be about 12.8. hours of sunshine. Part D says, a weatherman says temperatures are higher on days when there is more sunshine. Does the scatter graph support what the weatherman says? Give a reason for your answer. So this question may seem a little bit silly, but I guess is what it's touching on is the idea of correlation versus causation. So just because things are correlated doesn't mean one causes the other thing. And there's a funny meme about this to do with Internet Explorer, and it shows that the market share, as the market share of Internet Explorer decreased in the 2000s, the murder rate went down, suggesting that because Internet Explorer was so bad, people were getting so angry and killing other people. Obviously that wasn't the case. So in that case, correlation did not equal causation. But I think in this case we can safely say that the number of hours of sunshine is impacting the temperature because they are so closely correlated, and because most of the temperatures, higher temperatures, occur when there are higher numbers of hours of sunshine during the day. So we can say that yes, as most high temperatures occur on days with more sunshine. So that's a positive relationship. Okay. Question 2 says, express 56 as a product of its prime factors. So we need to split 56 into its prime factors. And we can start off with, say, 7 and 8. So 7 is a prime factor, and then 8 we can say is 2 cubed. So 56 is going to equal 2 cubed times 7. And that's question 2. Question 3 says, work out 54.6 times 4.3. So when you're multiplying decimals, what you want to do is remove the decimals from those numbers and do a normal long multiplication. So what I want to do here is to do 546 multiplied by 43. And what I mean when I say remove decimals is if I've got, say, 4.3, I want to change that to 43, and so I'm taking out that decimal. What I'm really doing is I'm multiplying it by 10. So this is 4.3 times 10. And I just say, the reason I say remove is because it's easier to say than multiply by 10. And obviously if I'm multiplying by 10 at the start, so I've multiplied 4.3 by 10 and 54.6 by 10, I will need to divide the answer by 100. So let's go ahead and finish this long multiplication off. So here I've got 6 times 3 is 18, carry the 1, 12, 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13, carry the 1, 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1, that's 16. And then I need to add on the tens. So here I've got 4 times 6 is 24, carry the 2, 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2, that's 18, carry the 1, 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1, that's 21. And then add those together and I get 8, 7, 14, carry the 1, 3, and 2. And so now, as I said, because I multiplied both numbers by 10, or I removed the decimal points twice out of those numbers, I need to divide this by 100 or put back in the decimal point twice. So what I end up with is 54.6 times 4.3 equaling 234.78. Question 4 gives us a diagram. It says the area of square ABCD is 10 centimeters squared. Show that x squared plus 6x equals 1. And what they're saying is we need to relate the sides of this square to the area so we can come up with this equation, x squared plus 6x equals 1. So we can take the lengths of these sides. So one length will be x plus 3 and the other length will be x plus 3 and multiply those together, and that should give us the area. In this case the area is 10. So x plus 3 multiplied by x plus 3 equals 10, which they've told us is the area. Then we can expand those brackets out using FOIL. So this is going to be x squared plus 3x, which is 6x, plus 9 equals 10. And then if we take that 9 away from this side, we will get x squared plus 6x equals 1. So therefore we've shown using that diagram that x squared plus 6x equals 1. There is actually another way to do this. So we can say that one side must be the square root of 10. So therefore x must equal the square root of 10 minus 3. And you can also do it that way, but I think that's actually more difficult than this one. Question 5 says the rectangular frame is made from 5 straight pieces of metal, and we're given this diagram. The weight of the metal is 1.5 kilograms per meter. Work out the total weight of the metal in the frame. So we can see that the width of this frame is 5 meters, the length is 12 meters, but we don't know the diagonal there. So this diagonal piece of metal, we need to find the length of that in order to find the total weight. This length is going to be 12, this is going to be 5, and in order to find the decimal we need to use the Pythagorean Theorem, which says that one leg squared plus the other leg squared equals the diagonal squared. So let's call this x. So therefore x squared is going to be 5 squared plus 12 squared. So x squared will be 25 plus 144, and 25 plus 144, that's 169. So then x equals the square root of 169, so x equals 13. and then we can go ahead and figure out how much metal in total we have. So we know this is 13, so we can work out the total amount of metal we have is, well, 12 and 12 is 24, plus 5 is 10, plus 13. And if we add all of those up, we get 47 meters. And the question says work out the total weight of the metal in the frame. So we need to take the amount of metal, multiply it by the number of kilos per meter, and we get 47 times 1.5. And then if we take, so 47 times 1, that's 47, and then half of 47, that's 23.5. So 47 plus 23.5, that's going to be 70.5 kilograms of metal. Question 6 says, the equation of the line L1 is y equals 3x minus 2. The equation of the line L2 is 3y minus 9x plus 5 equals 0. Show that these two lines are parallel. So when a question says show these two lines are parallel, what that's asking you to do is to show that their gradients are equal. Because if two lines have the same gradient, they must be parallel. Now, we've got one line in the slope-intercept form, and what the slope-intercept form tells you is essentially you can read straight off of it what the slope is and what the y-intercept is. So it'll look like this: y equals mx plus c, where m is the gradient and c is the y-intercept. So here we can see that y equals 3x plus 2, and 3 is the gradient and 2 is the y-intercept. So for L1, the gradient equals 3. And for L2, we need to rearrange it to be in the slope-intercept form. So let's start off by writing this equation down. 3y minus 9x plus 5 equals 0. So then 3y must equal all of this subtracted from this side. So if we take all of that from that side, we get 9x minus 5 on the right hand side, and then divide all of that by 3, we get y equals 3x minus 5 on 3. And so because now that's in slope-intercept form or gradient-intercept form, we can see straight away the gradient there is 3. So gradients are equal, therefore lines must be parallel. Question 7 says there are 10 boys and 20 girls in a class. The class has a test. The mean mark for all the class is 60. The mean mark for the girls is 54. Work out the mean mark for the boys. So we are given the mean mark for the total of the class. Now the mean mark for the whole class, well, that would be the total marks divided by the number of students there are. So that would be the total marks. Let's write that down. Divided by a number of students. So we know the whole class mean, they've told us that, so 60 must equal the total marks divided by the number of students, and we know that too. We know there are 10 boys and 20 girls, so the number of students is 30. Therefore, we can find out what the total marks were for the class. That will be 30 times 60, which is 1800. And now we know the total marks in the class. We can also work out the number of marks for the girls. So using this formula again, 54 must equal the total marks for the girls marks, divided by the number of girls, which is 20. So the girls' marks must be 20 times 54, which is 1080. And so now we can find out the boys' marks by taking the total of the marks in the class subtracting the girls' marks, and we get 720 for the boys. And now this will allow us to find the mean mark for the boys. So we can say the mean for the boys will be the total marks for the boys divided by the number of boys there are. So there are 10 boys in the class, so therefore the mean must be 720 divided by 10, which will be 72. Question 9 says, Jules buys a washing machine. 20% VAT is added to the price of the washing machine. Jules then has to pay a total of £600. What is the price of the washing machine with no VAT added? So one way we can increase something by 20% is to multiply it by 1.2. So if we have the original price, let's say X, and we multiply that by 1.2, that in effect increases that price by 20%. So to find the original price, we could say X times 1.2 equals 600, and then we could say X equals 600 divided by 1.2. But because I'm lazy and I don't feel like using my brain, I don't want to work out 600 divided by 1.2. So there is actually a method that reduces the calculating even more. It might take a little bit longer, but I think overall in a non-calculated paper it might be more useful. Let me know what you think, which method you prefer. But let's say that 600 in effect is 120% of the original price. Because if we take the original price to be 100%, increase it by 20%, and we're told that that's 600, then 600 must be 120% of the original price. So we can find what 10% is by dividing by 12, or let's say we could find out what 20% is by dividing by 6. So that will give me 20%, and divide this side by 6, that will give me 100. So £100 is worth 20% of the original price. So if I want to find the price without VAT, I can take away 20% from 600, which was 100. So 600 take 100 is going to equal 100%, which is £500. So there I haven't had to do any difficult calculating. All I've done is divide by 6 and take away 100. So let me know which method makes more sense to you, which one you'd prefer in a non-calculated paper. Question 11 says the graph of y equals f of x is drawn on the grid. And here we're given a quadratic looking graph. And then part A says write down the coordinates of the turning point of the graph. So the turning point is where essentially the graph turns, I guess. And it's going to be here, so the coordinates of that point are 1, minus 3. Part B says write down the estimates for the roots of f of x equals 0. So the roots are where y equals 0, so where the graph cuts the x-axis essentially. So that is about here and here. Now if each of these squares represents 0.1, this is going to be 0.7, between 0.7 and 0.8, so that's about minus 0.75, and this one's between 2.7 and 2.8, so about 2.75. So my 2 points are minus 0.75 and 2.75. And then part C says use the graph to find an estimate for f of 1.5. So in other words, when x equals 1.5, what does y equal? So if we go to 1.5 on the x-axis, go down to the graph, and we go across to the y-axis. Now if each of these represents 0.2, this is going to be minus 2.8 on the y-axis. Okay, question 12 says find the value of 81 to the power of minus a half. Now it's very important that you memorize your index laws, as these will, you can pretty much guarantee that something to do with index laws will be in the papers. So if you have a negative exponent, so x to the minus 1 is 1 over x, and if you have an exponent of a half, that's the square root of x. So if you combine those things, you get 1 over the square root of something. So this is going to equal 1 over the square root of 81, which is 1 over 9. So that's your answer there, 1 over 9. Part B says find the value of 64 over 125 to the power of 2 over 3. What this is saying is we need the cubed root of 64 over 125 and all of that squared. Again, I'm not going to go into why that is the case, but I have done a video on index laws, so you can check that out, or else you can find the millions of other videos on YouTube to do with index laws. And if we take the cube root of 64 and 125, we get 4 over 5 squared, which is 16 over 25. Question 13 says the table shows a set of values for x and y. Y is inversely proportional to the square of x. Find an equation for y in terms of x. So when we're told two things are proportional, we can use this symbol. So that means y is proportional to whatever's on this side. Now here we're told y is inversely proportional to the square of x. So when something is inversely proportional, we can say that y is proportional to the inverse of that thing, and in this case it's not just inversely proportional to x but the square of x. So that represents that relationship. And if we want to turn this into an equation, we can say y equals something multiplied by that inverse. And as long as we've got that k in there, they will equal something multiplied by 1 on x squared will equal y. Now in order to find that value for k, we need to be given some points, and we are given lots of points here. So let's use, say, 1, 9 and plug that into this equation, and we can find what k equals. So using 1, 9, 9 equals k over x, 1 on x squared. So because x is 1, so that's going to be 1 on 1. So then therefore k just equals 9. So then therefore our equation becomes y equals 9 multiplied by 1 on x squared, so 9 over x squared. Part B says find the positive value of x when y equals 16. So now we can take this equation, plug in y equals 16 and find x squared. So therefore 16 equals 9 on x squared. So x squared will equal 9 on 16. So then x equals the square root of 9 on 16. So x is going to equal 3 on 4. Question 15 says a cone has a volume of 98 centimeters cubed. The radius of the cone is 5.13 centimeters. Work out an estimate for the height of the cone, and they give you the volume of the cone there. So what we have to do is take these values, put them into this equation, and then solve for h. So let's take the volume. So the volume, which is 98, equals a third pi times the radius squared, and here we've got the radius of 5.13 squared multiplied by the height, which we're trying to find. So we could try to work this out exactly, but because we want to, so we could try to work this out exactly, but it says estimate, so what we're going to do is round off these numbers. So 98 could be rounded to 100. 5.13, that could be rounded to 5. And then h is what we're trying to find. So then what we end up with is, well, we can multiply this side by 3, so this becomes 300. This becomes 25 pi times h, and then divide that side by 25 pi, so h is going to equal 300 divided by 25 pi, and then we could divide 300 by 25, which is 12 divided by pi, and now we can estimate pi to be around 3. If we say it's 3.14, we're really not saving ourselves any work, because then we'd have to divide 12 by 3.14, and there's just no point in estimating all of this if we're going to end up doing that. So we say pi is approximately 3, therefore h approximately equals 4 centimeters. The next part of this question says, John used a calculator to work out the height of the cone to 2 decimal places. Will your estimate be more than John's answer or less than John's answer? Give a reason for your answer. So let's have a look back at this question. We rounded this number up by 2 units, and we rounded this one down by 0.13. So this is definitely rounded up more than we rounded this one down. So therefore, this number is going to be higher. This number is going to be higher than the real value. So if the numerator is bigger, than the real value, then our estimate is going to be bigger than the real value. So we'd say our estimate is more or an overestimate as we rounded 98 up to 100. And that's question 15. Okay, question 20, and this is the last question I'm doing in this video. If you want the rest of the questions from this paper, see the first video that I did. So question 20 says, solve algebraically the simultaneous equations x squared plus y squared equals 25 and y minus 3x equals 13. So I'm going to use this substitution method to solve this. So if we take that second equation, rearrange it so that y equals 3x plus 13, we can substitute that y value into the first equation, and we can solve for x. So let's take this equation. So this is the second equation, substitute it into the first one, and we get x squared plus 3x plus 13 squared equals 25. And then we can expand that out and then simplify. So this is going to be x squared plus 3x plus 13 equals 25. And then we can expand that using FOIL. So we get x squared plus 9x squared, outers, inners, last, and we get plus 39 plus 39x plus 169 equals 25. And then keep on simplifying, so this becomes 10x squared plus 78x, and then take that 25 from this side and you get 144 equals 0. Okay, so what we end up with is this quadratic, which we can go ahead and try to factorize into 2 brackets. Before we can do that, we can divide them all by 2. So we get 5x squared plus 39x plus 72 equals 0. And then we can see if we can split this into 2 brackets. So we've got the factors 5 and 1. So in the first part of these brackets, we're going to have 5x and x. And we need to see if we can find 2 factors of 72 that can make 39. So what are some factors of 72? Well, we could have 9 times 8, but that's not going to make 39. What about 24 times 3? So if we have 24 times 1 and 3 times 5, 24 plus 15, that will make 39. So they are the 2 factors of 72 that I'm going to use. So here I've got my 3, and over here I've got plus 24. So, and 24 times 3 is plus 72. So I can successfully factorize that into 2 brackets, and now I can go ahead and solve for x. So 5x plus 24 equals 0. Therefore x is going to be 20 minus 24 on 5, or x plus 3 equals 0. So x equals minus 3. Now we can substitute that back into one of the first equations. So we can take this equation, y equals 3x plus 13, and find what y will be equal. So y So therefore y equals 3 lots of minus 24 on 5 plus 13. And then we can simplify this. So this is going to be minus 72 on 5 plus 13. And then this becomes minus 14 and 2 on 5 plus 13. So therefore minus 14 plus 13, that's minus 1 and 2/5. So y equals minus 1 and 2/5 when x equals minus 24 on 5. And then if x equals minus 3, y equals 3 lots of minus 3 plus 13 equals minus 9 plus 13 equals minus 4. So my 2 points there are x equals minus 25 on 5 and y equals minus 1 and 2 over 5, or x equals minus 3 and y equals minus 4. The reason we get 2 answers to those simultaneous equations is because this is a circle, this x squared plus y squared equals 25, that's a circle, and this is a straight line, and what's happening is this straight line is cutting across the circle, and we get 2 points where it cuts that circle. So we get 2 answers to those simultaneous equations. And that is the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it useful. And as I said a couple of times, if you want the rest of the questions in this exam, see my first video. The link should be here somewhere on the page. So click that, check that out. Like this video if you found it helpful. Leave a comment letting me know what you thought, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.